How to Build an Unstoppable Routine, full motivational audiobook speech. Before every great transformation in life, there is a moment of awakening, one quiet second, when you finally admit to yourself that the life you want will never come to you unless you begin creating it with your own hands. And maybe this is your moment. Maybe life brought you here for a reason. Maybe the routine you've been searching for, the discipline you've been praying for, is finally ready to find you. But let me ask you, how much longer will you negotiate with your potential? How many more mornings will you wake up promising yourself soon, when everything you want is waiting for you to start now? Building an unstoppable routine is not about forcing yourself into a prison of habits. It is about freeing yourself from the chaos of unpredictability. It is about designing days that amplify your purpose instead of distract you from it. Every routine begins with a decision. The decision to stop living by impulse and start living by intention. When you wake up and choose to walk the same path consistently, you begin training your spirit to follow through even when motivation is absent. And that is when your routine becomes more than a schedule. It becomes a spiritual contract between you and the future version of yourself. Think about this. Every champion you admire has a routine that ordinary people are unwilling to repeat. Every successful person you see has rituals they follow long after excitement fades. So ask yourself, who would you become if you did what you said you would do? Every single day. Discipline is not something you build overnight. It is something you construct brick by brick, moment by moment. And here is the truth no one wants to hear. You don't rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the strength of your routines. Your routine is your safety net. Your routine is your compass. Your routine is the quiet engine powering your greatness behind the scenes. But there will be days when you feel tired, uninspired, or disconnected from your purpose. This is when you must remember, an unstoppable routine is not built on feeling, it is built on commitment. Feelings change, commitment doesn't. And when life hits you, when challenges surround you, when doubt whispers in your ear, your routine becomes your anchor. You don't crumble because you don't have to think, you simply act. Your routine carries you. Your routine protects you. And over time, your routine transforms you into someone even you never expected to become. Some people wait for motivation. Some wait for the perfect time. But the unstoppable ones? They build their identity around action. They learn to show up even when the world is silent. They learn to honor promises nobody else hears. And they understand something powerful. Discipline is a form of self-love. It is choosing what you truly want over what you want right now. It is choosing long-term strength over temporary comfort. It is choosing the future over the impulse of the moment. Design a routine that reflects your values. A routine that reflects your strength. A routine that reflects the person you are becoming, not the person you used to be. Protect your mornings. Guard your energy. Create rituals that align your mind, your spirit, and your purpose. And remember, you are not just building habits, you are building identity. When you repeat a behavior long enough, your brain begins to say, "This is who we are now." That is how transformation truly happens. Not through sudden breakthroughs, but through daily, quiet consistency. And as you continue your journey, remind yourself of this truth. Destiny favors the disciplined. The universe responds to patterns. Success follows structure. Every day you show up, every day you execute, every day you keep the promise, your routine becomes a spiritual force, moving you toward the life written for you. So today, I declare this over your life. You are entering a season of unstoppable discipline, a season where your routine becomes a weapon. A season where your actions multiply your blessings. A season where the world will not recognize who you used to be, because your consistency will rewrite your identity. And as you rise each morning, you will rise with purpose. You will rise with clarity. You will rise with strength, because from this moment forward, your routine is unstoppable, and so are you. Every great transformation begins with a whisper, a quiet realization that something in your life must change. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare or dramatic moments. It starts as a feeling, a restlessness, a pull towards something greater. And maybe you have been feeling that same pull. Maybe you have been asking yourself why you are capable of more, but keep operating at less. Why you feel a future inside you that you haven't seen outside you yet. Why your heart knows a version of you that your habits still haven't met. This is where the awakening of personal discipline begins, not with perfection, but with honesty. You reach a point where you can no longer ignore the gap between who you are and who you know you could become. You start to realize that your life will not change because of luck or timing or someone else's approval. It will change when you change. It will rise when you rise. And the moment you recognize that truth, you step into a new responsibility. You stop waiting for motivation to find you and start taking command of your own evolution. You begin asking yourself questions that shake you awake. Questions like, how much longer will I let my excuses speak louder than my potential? How much longer will I chase instant comfort while sacrificing long-term power? How much longer will I neglect the calling that has been waiting for me to show up? This internal questioning is not a sign of weakness. It is the first sign of growth. It is the beginning of a mental shift that separates those who dream from those who execute. You start to understand that discipline is not about force, it is about freedom. It is about building a structure in your life that protects you from your own limitations. It is about creating a foundation that holds you up when emotion, energy, or confidence temporarily fall. And when you finally see discipline as a gift instead of a burden, everything changes. Personal discipline is the first mirror you must face on the journey to becoming unstoppable. It shows you who you really are when no one is watching. It reveals the promises you keep and the ones you break. It reflects your true priorities, not the ones you say out loud, but the ones you live through action. And sometimes that mirror hurts. Sometimes it shows you habits you've avoided feeling ashamed of. Sometimes it reveals the hours you've wasted, the talents you haven't used, the opportunities you let slip. But that awareness is the beginning of power. You cannot change what you refuse to see. Once you face that truth, you step into a new level of intentionality. You stop moving through life on autopilot. You stop following old patterns just because they are familiar. You stop living as a product of your circumstances and begin living as the architect of your future. And the more aware you become, the more you realize how much control you actually have. You realize that greatness is not reserved for special people. It is the result of special commitment. It is built by ordinary individuals who choose extraordinary discipline. But there is something else that happens during this awakening. You begin to feel the weight of the person you want to become. You feel their expectation, their standards, their strength. You start to understand that you are not just creating habits, you are shaping a future self who depends on you. And when you think about that future self, the one who is stronger, calmer, more confident, more powerful, you start to ask yourself a different set of questions. Questions like, what would my best self expect from me today? How would the future version of me act if they were in this moment? What daily actions would that stronger self repeat, no matter what? This kind of reflection ignites accountability. It pushes you to rise above old behaviors that used to hold you in place. It reminds you that discipline is not about control, it is about alignment. Aligning your actions with your ambitions. Aligning your days with your destiny. Aligning your routine with the person you are meant to become. And once you feel that alignment, even for a moment, you taste a version of life that is very difficult to walk away from. The awakening of personal discipline also teaches you something profound. Your emotions are not always your friends. They are temporary. They are inconsistent. They swing with weather, energy, influence, and environment. If you base your life on how you feel, you will always live unpredictably. You will show up some days and disappear on others. You will break promises when mood shifts. You will fold under pressure because you never built the muscle of consistency. This is why discipline is a spiritual tool. It teaches you that your actions do not have to follow your emotions. They can follow your values instead. When you reach this understanding, something transforms inside you. You stop identifying with your weak moments. You stop letting doubt speak like truth. You stop letting fear dictate your decisions. You begin operating from a place of ownership. You start saying, "I am in control of my day. My day is not in control of me." You start approaching each morning with intention because you realize that every day is a chance to rewrite your life. And when you treat each day like an opportunity instead of an obligation, you carry a different energy, a different purpose, a different power. There comes a moment in this awakening when you can feel the shift internally. You feel your priorities evolving. You feel your standards rising. You feel your excuses losing strength. You feel a fire building inside you that you didn't know you had. And you begin to realize that discipline is not just about doing hard things. It is about becoming a harder, stronger, more purposeful version of yourself. A version that doesn't get distracted easily. A version that doesn't break under pressure. A version that doesn't crumble just because life gets difficult. This is the moment where you begin to rise. This is the moment where you decide that your future is worth more than your comfort. This is the moment where you choose to stop negotiating with your goals and start honoring them. Because the truth is simple. Your life will follow your discipline. Your results will follow your consistency. And your future will follow the decisions you make today. Designing your life with intention begins the moment you realize that nothing meaningful happens by accident. Purpose does not appear out of thin air. It is crafted through clarity, structure, and the willingness to choose what truly matters over what merely demands your attention. When you decide to build a routine that aligns with the future you want, you are making a powerful declaration. You are no longer willing to drift. You are choosing direction over distraction, commitment over chaos. But ask yourself, how can your life move toward greatness if your days are shaped by randomness? How can you reach a future of strength if your present is built on uncertainty? Intention is the map that guides your routine. Without it, you wake up each morning, responding instead of creating, reacting instead of leading. You let circumstances set the pace for your life, instead of allowing purpose to lead the way. But when you choose intention, everything shifts. You start shaping your environment to support your growth. You craft mornings that elevate your mindset. You build habits that reinforce your goals. And you begin to understand that the most powerful routines are designed, not discovered. Creating an intentional routine requires honesty about what strengthens you and what drains you. It requires you to ask yourself difficult questions. What do I do that pulls me closer to my future, and what do I do that silently sabotages it? What patterns keep me grounded, and which patterns keep me stuck? What actions reflect the person I want to become, and which ones reflect the person I'm trying to outgrow? These questions sharpen your awareness. They expose the difference between movement and progress. They challenge you to stop confusing being busy with being purposeful. Intention also demands simplicity. A routine filled with unnecessary tasks becomes a prison, not a path. The strongest routines are built from habits that matter, habits that push your mind, strengthen your discipline, and protect your energy. When you design with intention, you eliminate noise and elevate impact. You stop trying to do everything and start focusing on the few things that create real transformation. You begin to realize that the quality of your routine is far more important than the quantity of the activities inside it. As your routine becomes more intentional, something powerful starts to happen inside you. You feel more in control. You feel more aligned with your purpose. You move through your day with clarity rather than confusion. You stop waking up wondering what needs to be done and start waking up already knowing who you need to be. This internal certainty becomes fuel. It gives your actions meaning and it gives your days direction. And eventually, you begin to notice that intention brings momentum. Decisions become easier. Distractions lose their influence. And every action feels like a step toward the future you've envisioned. But perhaps the most profound part of designing your life with intention is the identity shift it creates. With every intentional choice, you reinforce a deeper belief within yourself that you are capable of growth, worthy of consistency, and deserving of success. You stop living on autopilot and start living with purpose. You show up differently. You think differently. You operate differently. And in that moment, you realize something life-changing. When your routine is built with intention, your life becomes unstoppable. Mastering consistency when motivation fades is the moment where true discipline is born. Anyone can act when excitement is high, when inspiration strikes, when everything feels aligned. But what happens on the days when you wake up tired, uninspired, overwhelmed, or disconnected from your purpose? What happens when you don't feel like showing up? This is where most people fall. This is where dreams dissolve. This is where potential is lost, not because they lack talent or ambition, but because they never learned how to keep going when the feeling disappeared. And ask yourself honestly, how many times have you stopped, not because you couldn't continue, but because you didn't feel like continuing? The truth is simple and powerful. Motivation is a temporary spark, but consistency is a lifelong engine. If you only act when you feel inspired, your results will always be inconsistent. If you allow emotion to dictate action, you will spend your life starting strong and finishing nowhere. That is why mastering consistency is less about emotion and more about identity. You must reach a point where you act, not because you are motivated, but because this is simply who you are now. You do the work because it aligns with your values, not your moods. You follow through because your future depends on it, not your feelings. And when you start thinking this way, your entire relationship with discipline transforms. Consistency requires a shift in how you see discomfort. Instead of running from it, you begin to look at it as a signal of growth. Instead of avoiding difficult days, you use them to sharpen your will. You begin to realize that consistency isn't maintained by strength alone, it's maintained by understanding. You understand that progress often hides behind repetition. You understand that breakthroughs often come after days of monotony. You understand that great achievements are not the result of rare moments of peak motivation, but of countless days of steady, quiet effort. So ask yourself, are you willing to be consistent even when nobody notices? Are you willing to show up when there is no applause? Are you willing to do the work when the reward is not immediate? When motivation fades, your habits become your safety net. They carry you through the low-energy moments when your mind tries to negotiate with your goals. They prevent you from falling back into old patterns. They keep your momentum alive even when your spirit feels dull. This is why creating rituals is so important. Rituals remove decision fatigue. They eliminate the internal debate. They make discipline automatic. When you have a ritual, whether it's your morning routine, your evening reflection, or your daily work schedule, you don't have to think, you simply act. You follow a path that you've already built, one step at a time, regardless of how you feel. But the most powerful part of mastering consistency is realizing how much it strengthens your identity. Each day you show up, even at 70% energy, you build self-respect. You build trust with yourself. You build proof that you are someone who follows through. And that internal trust becomes the foundation of every future achievement. When you know you can rely on yourself, there is nothing you cannot pursue. You stop seeking external validation because you have internal certainty. You stop doubting your path because your actions confirm your direction. You stop quitting because quitting no longer aligns with who you are. Eventually, consistency becomes a force that shapes your destiny. You stop waiting for perfect moments. You stop depending on emotional highs. You start creating results through rhythm, discipline, and commitment. And you begin to realize that mastery is not about doing more, it is about never stopping. It is about choosing progress over excuses. It is about continuing even when the world is quiet. Because in the end, the people who win are not the ones who feel motivated the most. They are the ones who remain consistent the longest. Rewiring your identity through repetition is one of the most powerful transformations a person can experience, because it shifts change from something you do into something you become. Every action you repeat, every thought, every behavior, every choice, communicates a message to your mind about who you are. The question is, what message are you sending? Are your daily actions reinforcing the identity of someone strong, disciplined, and committed? Or are they reinforcing the identity of someone who hesitates, overthinks, and postpones growth? When you look honestly at your patterns, what do they say about the person you are becoming? The truth is that your mind is always listening to you. It pays attention to what you do far more than what you promise. If you say you want to change but repeat the same habits, your mind begins to believe that the old identity is still in control. But when you repeat actions that align with your goals, even small ones, your identity slowly begins to shift. You start to see yourself differently. You start to trust yourself more. You start to ask deeper questions. If I can follow through today, why can't I follow through tomorrow? If I can change one behavior, what else in my life is possible? Repetition is the language of the brain. The more frequently you perform an action, the more your brain wires it into your identity. This is why people often underestimate small habits. They look insignificant at first, but over time they reshape the way you think, the way you respond, and the way you perceive yourself. You begin to carry yourself differently when you repeatedly act with discipline. You speak differently when you repeatedly honor your commitments. You think differently when you repeatedly choose growth over comfort. And before long, you realize you are not fighting for a new identity, you are growing into it. This transformation becomes especially powerful when you understand that identity drives behavior. Most people try to change their actions without changing the identity behind them. They try to wake up early while still seeing themselves as someone who struggles with mornings. They try to build discipline while still believing they are inconsistent. They try to pursue success while still identifying with failure. But ask yourself, how can your actions rise if your identity stays low? How can you behave like the person you want to become if you still think like the person you used to be? Repetition solves this. Every time you act in alignment with your goals, you cast a vote for the person you are becoming. One workout does not make you an athlete, but it casts a vote. One day of focus does not make you unstoppable, but it casts a vote. One moment of discipline does not change your entire life, but it begins the process. And as the votes accumulate, your identity begins to shift. You start to believe in your own consistency. You start to feel capable of more. You start to see proof that you are not who you once were. Repetition also builds confidence, not the kind of confidence that comes from praise or external validation, but the deeper confidence that comes from knowing you can trust yourself. Every day, you follow through. You strengthen that trust. Every day you keep your promise. Your self-belief grows. And when your self-belief grows, your courage follows. You begin taking bigger steps, making bolder decisions, and pursuing goals you once avoided. Because now you have evidence. Now you have habits. Now you have identity on your side. Eventually, repetition becomes transformation. You wake up one day realizing that the person you imagined has become the person you are. Your actions no longer feel forced. They feel natural. Your discipline no longer feels heavy. It feels normal. Your growth no longer feels uncertain. It feels expected. And at that point, the question changes. Instead of asking, "Can I become that person?" you begin asking, "How much further can I go?" Protecting your energy, focus, and purpose is not just a productivity strategy, it is a form of self-respect. When you begin to understand the value of your attention, you also begin to understand why so many people feel drained, distracted, and directionless. Your mind is the center of your entire life, and whatever controls your focus controls your future. So ask yourself, how many opportunities have slipped away because your attention was scattered? How many dreams faded, not because you lacked talent, but because your energy was constantly being pulled in too many directions? The truth is that your energy is one of the most precious resources you have. It fuels your decisions, your discipline, your creativity, and your purpose. But most people give it away casually through endless scrolling, unnecessary conversations, and environments that weaken their clarity. Protecting your energy means creating boundaries with anything that drains your inner strength. It means recognizing when something is costing you more than it is giving you. It means choosing your peace over pleasing people. When you start guarding your energy, you begin to feel the difference in every part of your life. You feel lighter, you think clearer, you act with intention instead of exhaustion. Focus is the second part of this protection, and it might be even more powerful. In a world filled with noise, focus is a superpower. It allows you to direct your attention toward the few things that genuinely matter. Without focus, your life becomes a collection of half-finished efforts. With focus, your life becomes a series of meaningful achievements. And yet, many people spend their days being busy instead of being effective. They respond to distractions faster than they respond to their goals. They allow interruptions to dictate their direction. But if you want to build an unstoppable routine, you must ask yourself, what deserves my attention today? What actions move me closer to my purpose? What distractions am I still allowing to steal my future? Protecting your purpose means being unapologetic about your growth. It requires you to let go of the people, habits, and environments that no longer match your vision. It means you stop explaining your journey to those who don't understand it. It means you stop seeking approval from those who are comfortable staying exactly where they are. Your purpose is not something you discover once, it is something you nurture daily. It grows when you give it time, when you give it energy, when you give it respect. So ask yourself, are you feeding your purpose or starving it? Are your daily choices strengthening your future or weakening it? When you protect your energy, focus, and purpose, your routine gains power. You start waking up with clarity instead of chaos. You move through the day with direction instead of confusion. You make decisions based on values instead of impulses. And as you remove distractions, you become more aligned with your goals. You realize that not everything deserves a response, not everyone deserves access, and not every situation deserves your emotional involvement. You are no longer pulled into the noise, you rise above it. Eventually, this protection becomes a lifestyle. You begin choosing environments that inspire you. You surround yourself with people who elevate your mindset. You create habits that support your dreams instead of sabotaging them. And slowly, your life transforms, not because of one dramatic decision, but because you consistently guarded what matters most. When you protect your inner world, your outer world begins to reflect it. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that the world rarely hands out the outcomes they expect it. Hands out the outcomes they demand through their consistency, their discipline, and their refusal to accept anything less than their own best. Think about it for a second. How many times do people say they want change, yet continue living inside the same habits that create the same results? How many dreams die quietly, not because they were impossible, but because the person carrying them kept postponing, kept hesitating, kept waiting for the right time that never arrived? And the real question is, how much longer will you allow that cycle to repeat in your own life? Every successful transformation begins with one powerful decision. The decision that you are no longer available for your old excuses, your old limitations, your old version of yourself. When you reach that point, something inside you shifts. An inner strength that was always there starts rising, pushing you to operate at a level you once thought was beyond your reach. It doesn't happen by chance. It happens because you choose to commit, day after day, to the uncomfortable truth that growth demands effort, and effort demands consistency. Imagine what your life could look like if you stopped negotiating with your potential, if you stopped asking for permission to be great, if you stopped shrinking so others could feel comfortable. People often say they want to level up, but they forget that leveling up means leaving behind the thoughts, behaviors, and environments that keep them small. You can't step into a higher version of yourself while dragging the weight of who you used to be. At some point, you must decide that you're moving forward, with or without the approval of anyone else. You've already survived moments you thought would break you. You've already endured storms you thought would drown you. And yet, here you are, still standing, still breathing, still capable of rewriting everything. So ask yourself, if you can make it through all of that, what makes you think you can't rise higher now? What makes you believe that the challenges ahead are greater than the strength within you? The truth is, you've been preparing for this next chapter long before you knew it existed. But strength without direction becomes wasted energy. This is why intention matters. When you decide what you want, and you decide who you must become to achieve it, your actions start aligning in ways that make progress feel inevitable. The late nights become meaningful. The early mornings become empowering. The sacrifices become investments. And every step, no matter how small, becomes a piece of evidence proving that you are no longer the person who gives up easily. And as you move forward with this mindset, you begin to notice something powerful. Discipline stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like a form of respect for your future. You stop chasing motivation and start becoming the kind of person whose consistency builds its own momentum. You stop waiting for the world to change and start becoming the force that changes everything. This is how greatness is built, not in loud moments, but in repeated, quiet decisions that no one else sees. And today, you are standing at the edge of one of those decisions. The question is simple. Will you step forward into the life you are capable of, or will you stay where it feels safe but stagnant? The answer will define everything that comes next.